on? Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my project notebook flip through, which is actually a video that I was asked to make. So a while ago I started looking through my notebooks and realized I kind of just had 4 categories to everything that went into those notebooks, ones which you are probably familiar with on this channel. And I also realized that I only have 6 project notebooks right now, which sounded a little surprising until I realized that most of these projects that have notebooks are series. They grow into series, and that all of my other ideas that I have in my head are currently too small to warrant the need for a notebook. So, just as a reference, or just so you could see how my notebooks are laid out, let's go through the grandmaster of my projects, Project 1. So this is clearly the most used notebook I have so far, maybe except for Project Quest, but in terms of length of use, this one is definitely the longest. So I started with character design in this notebook, as I tend to do with most projects now. Then I thought I'd make character profiles. Side note, I've tried to make character profiles for these 3 main characters maybe 4 times by now, and each time I have failed and never actually filled them out. Right after the failed attempt of character profiles, I started with a basic plot and idea that I wanted, which, oh my god, this story has changed so much since these pages. Then the rest of the notebook is more brainstorming, some writing I ended up never using, a character collage that I still love, and some world building that I eventually realized I needed, mainly for this antagonistic group that is there, that I had no idea who they were going to be. And also a ton of revision notes, since I've gone through this story most out of any other project so far, which doesn't seem very substantial when you realize I've gone through this story twice. So, 2 sets of revision notes. They are quite extensive though. So, now, let's go through my other 5 notebooks, and just for the sake of consistency, I have broken all of these books up into those 4 categories I was talking about, plus a few more just for some special circumstances. So, the first, brainstorming. This one honestly doesn't take up too much time in my head and the notebooks before I actually start the story, because before I start the story I have a pretty good idea of what I want to do with it. That, and when I start brainstorming, it's usually in a Google Doc, and anytime I need to actually brainstorm in the notebook, it's either because I had the notebook already before I started brainstorming, or I needed to think some more things through, and I like to think things out on paper. The second one is world building. This definitely takes up a lot more time because honestly I put too much detail into the futile information and never actually flesh out the important stuff. And as most of my stories are set, not most, all of my stories are set in worlds that have things that don't exist on Earth or in our universe, all of my stories have, in some way or another, some world building in their notebooks. So most of it's just scribbling and just trying to jot down what I think could work for this. Some of it's doodling or drawings, and for the most part it's going to be settings or people that I need to flesh out. For my fantasy, I have plants and animals and stuff that I'm working on, and actually for most of them I also have the maps in them, most of which I have digitalized by now, but the drawings start on paper, and I move them to the iPad, you know. Then we have plotting. So this usually happens on cards, but lately I've been using less and less cards for outlines, like my NaNoWriMo project, which I'm basically pantsing right now. So for the most part, there's no plotting in these notebooks except for those newer projects, like my sci-fi project Star. I didn't really plot out like 15 beats, like perfect like cards and everything. I just had the whole idea of what I wanted the story to go on, and then in the notebook I did chapter by chapter outlines that kind of kept me on track. Now, the last of the major groups, revision. As I finished more and more of the projects, I did revision notes less and less, until I did like basically none. For these projects, for the most part, I do have some revision notes in there. As time goes on and as the project becomes my like third or my fourth or my fifth finished draft, there are less and less notes in the notebook. Like Project What had a ton, Project Quest had a pretty good amount, and then Project Glass is just like a slip of paper, because I realized that I could put most of the information in the document on Google Docs, instead of writing it all out for me to try and interpret, because my handwriting is awful. The only things I do keep on paper now are the most important stuff, like major things I need to change, or like a huge plot hole that I find. And now, those last two categories that just have one project notebook in them, because for different reasons I had to use them for this stuff. My first one is YouTube videos. I'll actually link the video I filmed for this in the corner, but it was a creature design challenge thing that I was doing just to like try and make some new creatures for my fantasy project quest. So I put all the details and stuff in the project notebook, just so I could keep it with the project, since it was only going to be the one. And then the second one was handwriting a whole chapter in my co-writing story. This was because right before I started writing it, I broke my laptop keyboard, so I couldn't write on my laptop. I had to either like write on my phone or on my iPad or something, and I really did not want to do that. This was around the time we were almost done with our project, Maddie and I, so we had started setting up deadlines for our chapters so we could keep switching off so we could be done in time, and my deadline was coming up, so I needed to get the chapter out of my head and onto something. So once I did have a solution to typing it up, or finally like came to my senses and started writing it on my iPad or something, I could already have the chapter done. I just needed to type it up. I wrote the whole chapter that I needed in my notebook, eventually typed it up. I don't remember how, but it did get into the doc.
Alright, and now to set up my notebook for my NaNoWriMo project this year. Yes, I realize it is the second to last day of NaNoWriMo when this video is going out, but I thought I'd share this anyways because I quite like how the cover came out. My project is called Project Jade, so I kind of went with those sort of light green, milky colors for the cover on the front, and then the back is more of like a rustic fantasy kind of feel, and I like how it turned out, so I thought I'd share it.
notebooks for each individual project? Or do you just keep a writing notebook that you use to work on all your projects? Or do you only have one project, so you don't even need multiple notebooks? Or, these are a lot of options, I understand. Or, do you not need a notebook? You keep everything on like Scrivener or Google Drive or Word or whatever you use. If you do, big props to you. That seems so much more organized, but for some reason I need it to be on paper. But yeah, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know how you organize this kind of stuff because everyone does it differently. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, thanks for being here, thanks for hanging out, and hope to see you in the next one. Peace.